Welcome to Midlife Reclaimed, the podcast for women ready to navigate midlife with more clarity, compassion, and energy. I'm Shannon A. Swales, psychologist, writer, doggy mama, and midlife woman walking this path alongside you. Twice a month, we explore real stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you move through chronic stress, overwhelm, and burnout so you can reclaim your voice, your boundaries, and your joy. Please remember what you hear here is general information, not a substitute for personal therapy. This isn't about midlife crisis, it's about midlife reclamation. So let's begin. Hi there, welcome to Midlife Reclaimed. I am your host, Shannon A. Swales, and it's lovely to have you here for another solo episode. If you're new here, welcome. If you're someone returning, thank you so much for being here. There is a narrative out there for midlife, one that at least this midlife person has heard too often, that it is all downhill from here. And for women in particularly, that it's not just downhill, but you don't matter, you're invisible. And I call absolute bullshit on that. That is not how I see or want to live my current and future chapters of life. I do realize I am not silly, that there are some downhill aspects of midlife and through to that next stage of elderhood. There definitely is some truth to downhill, and there's definitely challenges that come in this chapter, just like every other chapter before us: teenagehood, 20s, 30s, parenthood, if you've chosen or able to have that route. I'm not silly to think that there isn't some aspects of downhill and invisibility as well, but we don't need to consume that narrative. We don't need to live that narrative. So in this episode, I don't want to tell you how to live your midlife as a woman, as a person. I just want to open up and be curious and explore what this narrative might be instead of just consuming what is given to us, that it's all downhill, or it's for women invisibility, that you don't matter. I just want us to open up and explore. And it is typical of my style, at least these days, to reflect and be curious to these messages we've been given, rather than just acting on autopilot. So that's what I want to bring with you today. If you're someone who is starting to notice these narratives around you, or even living it, and you're like, I'm not quite sure, or questioning it, this is an episode for you. Come with me on a journey of reflection, because I'm actually going to ask myself some questions to help me open up to exploring my narrative around being a midlife person, woman in this world. And I want you to come along on that journey with me to actually ask yourself the same questions. Pause if you're watching on YouTube, or pause if you're listening, and actually grab your journals, writing pad if you're someone to write and reflect in that way, or reflect, in whatever way you'd like to draw, think it out. But I want you to come along with me and explore this, rather than me just sit here and share my professional and personal experience. I want it to be collective. So if you're with me, find a comfy space, or wherever that might be. You might be on the go, but I really encourage to have a bit of space to reflect at some point, and with me would be lovely. Anyway, your choice. So before we continue this conversation, I have some exciting news to share with you. Midlife Reclaimed has been nominated in this year's Women in Podcasting Awards, a global initiative to help raise the voices of women in podcasting. So, if this episode or another or this podcast has supported you in some shape or form over the 5 years that it has been in existence, I would really appreciate your vote. I will be leaving the voting link in the show notes. So, make sure before you finish this episode or after you finish this episode to vote for Midlife Reclaimed. It will not only really make me smile, but also help get Midlife Reclaimed out to those who could benefit greatly from listening. So, thank you in advance for your vote. And of course, thank you for continuing to follow, subscribe, like, or just enjoy an episode or two. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of you. One little caveat. Like with all my episodes, but particularly this one, I feel when we reflect on topics, it can sometimes bring up some difficult thoughts or feelings or memories or other experiences. And, and that's okay. That can happen. But also, to make space for that to step away from this if it's too much and get the support that you need, or whether that's connecting with a friend, a family member, or professional, or connecting in ways that works for you, going for a walk, making yourself a cup of tea, whatever. But I just want to acknowledge that and to encourage you to look after yourself and make decisions that support you. The first two questions we're going to reflect on together are around our beliefs about midlife. And the first question is, what beliefs have I come to around midlife? And this might take a little bit of reflecting in. Maybe you haven't entertained this question before. So, again, like I mentioned earlier, press pause and sit with this. And just whatever comes up, write down, think about, explore. It might be a question you come back to later as well. But to share my own personal experience, I hadn't actually really thought about midlife until I was in the start or beginning of midlife. And I've mentioned it before on the podcast and in my book, Nothing Left to Give, that it was my good friend Gary who actually said that when I was going through burnout and in my recovery, he said, "Do you think you're going through a midlife crisis?" And that was the starting point of recognizing I was in midlife. So I wasn't thinking about my beliefs about midlife back then. I was just thinking about getting well. But I have thought about it since, and certainly working in the midlife space and specifically with women, I've certainly heard other narratives as well. And reading a lot from others in the midlife space, hearing those narratives too. And the big one that I have sat with and sit with personally is the decline, the downhill, the everything is worse, your best days are over. And yeah, like that belief, not choosing to have that in my belief system, but something that I adopted from watching and observing my parents and their friends and my aunts and uncles in midlife. And that was certainly the message, that I received, that yeah, it is all downhill. I remember in my culture, it's very much, you celebrate your 40th. It's a big birthday bash party. And that was the message, that, well, it's all downhill, so have a big bash kind of thing. And it was all kind of jokes, but even joking, we adopt these kind of beliefs. So anyway, that's where mine came from. The other one I want to mention is one that I don't necessarily connect with. I mean, I don't connect with the downhill, but it was something that was sitting in my psyche that I was aware of from those younger years that I adopted unknowingly. But this other one, it comes up a lot in the work that I do with midlife women, and that's the invisibility narrative, that I'm no longer seen or heard or mattered. And certainly, there is definitely within the culture that kind of approach to women in midlife because we are generally in industrialized societies. Women are seen as 40 plus as invisible because our worth is based on our youth, on our beauty, and on our ability to produce and in terms of children. I mean, it's shifting and changing, but there's certainly that kind of aspect to the culture. So in our 40s we're not considered, well, to be youthful, to be beautiful, and we are starting to be on that other end of being able to have children for those who are able or want to. So there is this invisibility that people feel, and it's very real. And I think the reason I haven't really seen it around me personally from my elders, but I think I also have been someone who has always enjoyed invisibility due to, and I say enjoyed, it was a comfort zone because of feeling anxious about being visible. So I think it hasn't hit me as hard because it's not something I've ever valued, to or valued or needed or felt safe in. Anyway, that's probably for my therapist and I to work out. But I just wanted to bring that one up because that might be one for you, the invisibility. But yeah, what beliefs am I holding on to about being in midlife woman, a midlife whoever you are? The second question, which I actually went ahead and answered around beliefs, but it's where did this come from? It's so important to recognize, yeah, where is this belief coming from? In a sense of, is this mine? Like we often, we humans, we form a lot of our beliefs through our early life experiences, quite subconsciously a lot of the times, not actively choosing. And so when we're exploring our belief systems around something like being in midlife, it is important to go, well, where did that come from? Where did that being a midlife woman means I'm invisible, or a midlife woman means that yeah, everything's downhill from me, you're from here. Like, where did that come from? Did it come from me? Did it come from observing my elders like it did me, back in my youth? Did it come from culture? And that's what they say. They say that I'm no longer beautiful, youthful, or, good for reproducing. I mean, okay, biology might say that, but that's what my worth is as a woman, in midlife. That it's all based on that. Why not something else? So where did this come from is really important because most of the time it didn't come from us, and our elders who maybe held on to it might have not come from them either. And it's really important that what we believe, we choose. And even if we we used to connect with that, do we still connect with it? Do we want to take that belief forward? Do we want to take that narrative that that being a midlife woman means I'm invisible, to you? Do you want to hold that belief for yourself? Who cares what other people think? Well, they're going to think what they're going to think. We can't control that, but you can control what you believe. So yeah, I want you to pause, reflect on that question. These next few questions, we're now pivoting from the belief systems and reflecting on that and where they come from to what we're feeling presently in the midlife space, and also what we may like to leave behind. So we're moving a bit more into the present. So the first question is, what does midlife feel like for me right now? Now I know that could be a big question. Actually, I'm feeling like my stomach just went, and my chest was like, "Ooh, this is a big one. This might take a whole episode, but I'll do my best to bring it into something succinct for you." And you might feel the same, as you hear that question land. And like I mentioned earlier, take your time with this. Just reflect a little bit now, and you can come back to these questions. It's no drama. But okay, what does midlife feel like for me right now? I'm going to go with the negative first. Hmm. Um, I'm tired. I'm tired a lot. Now, just for context, I went through quite a severe burnout that led to not being able to work. In my At 41, that took quite a number of years to really address. And somewhere along those lines, perimenopause hit. So it's not unusual considering the chronic stress, burnout, as well as being a perimenopausal woman and an aging body. We're always aging to feel that, to feel tired, but everyone's experience is different. But my midlife current experience does feel a little downhillish if I focused on that physical aspect because my energy levels are nowhere near what they used to be. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that that will pass, that it's temporary. But yeah, midlife for me right now is a lot of fatigue. It's also staying with the cognitive stuff and physiological stuff. It's also uh, a lot of physical health stuff. I'm very grateful that it's not as bad as I hear for others, but there's definitely a lot more ailments showing up compared to my earlier years. Some cumulative issues, like with my back. I've always had lower back issues due to a major fall in my 20s. Um, but it's got to a point that, yeah, there's some issues in my spine. I'm grateful that it doesn't cause any current pain, but there's that I suppose for a lot of us in life, there's that declining of health. There's the coming into finding out diagnoses that uh, maybe something that is cumulative effect. You know, there's a lot of people that are diagnosed with chronic illnesses in this stage of life. There's people who experience acute but very scary conditions like cancer. So there's a lot of health stuff going on, I suppose. And again, kind of sits that in that narrative of decline, doesn't it? Um, that I suppose knowing about aging and the aging body, I'm not expecting it to not be, I know that uh my body has been utilized over the years and not necessarily always looked after. So I'm not shocked, I suppose, by it all because I sit in that awareness. But anyway, my current midlife is there is there is some physiological stuff going on and lots of digestive related issues for me. So there's that. But like on the flip side, there is this wisdom, there is this knowing through experience and the collective knowledge that comes from that experience that I recognize in myself, with the 45, 6 years that I have lived, there's a recognition of that wisdom and that knowledge. And that feels lifting. That feels like growing. That doesn't feel downhill. That feels uh, like powerful and empowering. Like I have this knowledge and wisdom that I've gained, and that's really cool. But also, I'm wanting to share that to share that with others, personally, professionally. Yeah, like there's that. So that definitely doesn't fit the decline. There's also a a relationship with self that has changed, a lot of work. It just didn't happen like that. But there's definitely a more willingness and a want to look after myself, not just because I should or I have to or I need to look a certain way to look young and beautiful. It's because I want to. I love me. I want to look after me. I know I'm declining, but I want to be as healthy as possible. So it's more from a heart. Like I deserve my love. I want to give myself that. And yeah, so there's a compassionate relationship with myself that yes, I've worked hard on. I don't think that just arrives in our 40s. We work on that. But I think there's almost like a want or a desire for that underlying. There's almost like, what about me? Or for a lot of women, like there's been so much care going out, and in our early stages of life, 20s and 30s, there certainly might be, or is, especially if we're parents, to give to others or in our professions. And there's a lot of beauty with that. But there does seem to be this sort of want or desire to connect with ourselves. And certainly compassion is a very big component. And another, I suppose, growth thing I've noticed in my midlife is, and again, I've worked on it, but my relationships and what I choose and who I choose has become a lot more. I don't know what the word is, measured, or it's just considerate of myself because I'm a recovering people pleaser. So it was about, I felt my worth, my likability and acceptability was based on how other people perceived me. And so it didn't really help with forming relationships in that were healthy long term and meaningful for me as well as hopefully the other person. So yeah, shaping that has been something. Again, I feel like there's something about midlife and you've had a lot of experience and there's this knowing that life is half over that sort of brings a bit of urgency that there's no time to mess around, you know. A lot of us unfortunately experience the death of our parents or uncles, aunts, friends sometimes passing away early. That death often teaches us the value of living. So, yeah, anyway, I told you there was a lot there. I suppose that's what's happening for me in midlife now. So it's not this decline picture. It's not, definitely not like, well, invisible, no, because I don't see my worth attached to youth, beauty, or what was the other one? But anyway, I don't see my reproducing. I chose not to have kids. I'm grateful that woman in a position to make that choice, and appreciate my ancestors for fighting for that choice. And yeah, and very happy with that choice. But I didn't have like that reproduction, I suppose, value. Although certainly people had opinions about that. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, that invisibility. And actually, I kind of find myself moving into this, wanting to be more visible, but to share my wisdom, to share to the next generation, and my fellow midlife women, and to learn from my elders, learn from everybody. Anyway, that's my answer. This question, is there anything that's quietly or maybe loudly asking, is this it? Now, this might bring up different things for you and just go wherever your heart, gut, mind, whatever you're following goes to. But for me, this question brings up, and it's just written over here. So I'm just going back to it because I'm a visual person. Is there anything quietly asking, is this it? I think sometimes there is this, I think I mentioned before, there's this awareness that time is ticking, that, I'm 46. If I'm lucky, I'll live to 90 and in a healthy way. Maybe 100. That'd be cool. To triple zero, triple zero, triple digits. Shit. Anyway, but I think, I don't know if is this it? I think maybe I had that come up before. I think I sometimes get a bit of Groundhog Day. Maybe that's what I kind of sit with. Is this it? Sort of like you get up, you go to work, you hang out with your partner, you hang out with your friends, hang out with, in my case, my animals, my children. Um, you go to a concert maybe, you know, maybe if you're lucky, you've got the money to travel. You know, is this it? Like almost like, yeah, like that there should be more. But I don't sit with that anymore in a large way. I mean, like I said, Groundhog Day, sometimes I like, it's funny, I'm someone who likes routine, but I also like variety. So I'm not easily pleased. But anyway, this one's sitting with me a little bit funny, but I think my connection with what truly matters and in my life really helps me center and not get too caught up in any narratives around my life needing to be any more than it is. And if I want it to be more and it's achievable or realistic, then to take action to make it that way. Some things aren't achievable or in people's reach, that they may want. Uh, but where it is that make that change. But anyway, my answer may be a little bit confusing, but that's where my mind has gone. And sometimes when we're reflecting ourselves and we have these prompting questions, it might be the same, that it's a little bit muddled, messy. Just write, share, reflect in your mind where it's at. You can just free express, write that, and see what might fall from there. I'm just going to pause here for a moment to share something with you. If you've been listening and thinking, I wish I had a space where I could talk about this with people who truly get it, that's exactly why I created the Midlife Reclaimed community. It's a gentle, real, and supportive space for women navigating midlife. Whether you're facing chronic stress, overwhelm, burnout, or simply wanting to reconnect with yourself. We meet for live, weekly support circles, share reflective prompts, and learn together so you can feel seen, heard, and supported as you reclaim what matters most. You don't have to figure it all out alone. Visit shannonaswales.com/midlife-reclaimed-community to join us. Now let's get back to the episode. And the last question for this section is, what no longer feels like it fits, that no longer is yours to carry, in your midlife? Yeah. And again, this could be a big question for you. So pause, take your time, come back to it. For me, so I'm just going to read that question again. What feels like it no longer fits or no longer mine to carry? There's so much shedding I've done as a result of midlife burnout. It really taught me some things to let go of. And a lot of it was mental things, expectations, beliefs, ways of being, yeah. And I think one of the big ones is, that I shed and I no longer take in is other people's feelings, experiences, stresses is not mine to carry. I used to carry those. No one was asking me to. I just did, and felt almost responsible for doing my part to help alleviate that. I'm not carrying that anymore. It's something that I still need to be aware of because I can get caught up in it, but that's not mine to carry. It's not mine to deal with. It's my choice, certainly to be a compassionate other for those that are in my life, those I work with as clients, certainly showing up in those supportive relationships in a way that uh, I want to, and that the person is comfortable in receiving, but that I don't need to, in order to do that, in order to be a supportive person, friend, I don't need to carry their feelings. I don't need to carry their stresses and work that out. Um, you know, yeah, I'm there for them when I can be, and I'm also there for myself because this duck has her own stuff, her own feelings, which is mine to carry and is mine to take care of and is mine to ask for help and have that support around me, but not, certainly not theirs to carry, but it's okay to ask for help. So anyway, there's that one for me. Um, I think there might be one other. What's no longer fitting? Hmm. I think another big one for me is I'm no longer going to just go along with something that doesn't feel right. Like if someone says something, even if it's jokingly, but it's racist, it's misogynist, I'm not just going to, uh, you know, let that slide in order to, you know, make them feel comfortable or to help me feel comfortable because that whole, not wanting to rock the boat kind of, yeah, I just, I'm less likely to let that kind of stuff slide. I'm just going to make note of it. I know that, it may not change a damn thing, but I'm not going to be quiet anymore. I suppose that's it. It's like, a lot of us, particularly women, get taught to be quiet, especially Gen Xers. Be quiet, do what you're told, be a good girl. No. So, yeah, shedding that. Anyway, there's many things, but that's what I'll share with you today. But take that time to share, reflect for yourself. Okay, now we're going to open up. We've looked at the past, what belief systems have we adopted? We've looked at present, how we're sort of feeling about our midlife, what might be, what might we be shedding, what are we experiencing? Now we're moving into more openness and dreaming. Sort of what could be or can be. So there's three questions here. The first one is, if something is falling away, so we were just talking about that, what might it be making space for? That's a really cool question because I talked about being the good girl, be quiet. What's that? That's falling away and it's making space for me to voice my opinion, to voice my disgust, to voice what I believe, without having to filter it to make someone else feel great. And that other thing I mentioned about shedding, letting go of, and my perimenopause brain has gone blank about what that was. What was that? And I don't have you guys here to let me know. But what else was no longer fitting? Um, oh shit, completely can't remember. But anyway, the good girl out the door. I didn't mention this, but the perfectionist, oh gosh, I thought it came here. But that's something that I'm shedding too, and when I talk about perfectionists, I'm talking about that my self-worth was tied up in achievements, that I met the expectations that I had on myself or I perceived others had of me, that then I'm worthy, then I'm good enough. That as I shed that, and I'm still working on shedding that, that's making room for, well, I was going to say messiness, but that it's okay just to be me, and I am messy. I think we're all freaking messy, to a certain extent. We're not this put together, package, that, the beauty companies or Instagram or whatever wants to project on us. We are all humans that are imperfectly perfect. We're messy, we're complex, we're layered. And I suppose that's what it's making room for me to come out and my authentic self, who I'm getting to know and love and appreciate, and sometimes get a little bit embarrassed by, but like that's okay. So yeah, that's what that's making space for. But I'm feeling like, oh, I'd love to be able to hear your answers, how diverse they might be. But anyway, that's just, my urge there. But yeah, take your time to answer that question yourself. And just to repeat it, what feels like it's sorry, if something is falling away, what is it making space for? Now, this second question in this section of opening and dreaming is, what have I stopped letting myself imagine? Now, this one's a little bit of a tricky one for me. I was going to say I've never been a dreamer. I don't think I've been allowed to dream. in a way. I've been allowed to achieve and I've been able to try a lot of things. But dreaming, imagining, just doesn't, and maybe that's just part of my makeup. But anyway, this one's a bit tricky for me for that reason. So maybe some of you might find this question or other questions tricky, and that's okay. But what have I stopped letting myself imagine? Hmm. Hmm. And maybe this actually just something I'm dawning on now. Um, Part of me might be not allowing myself to imagine the possibility of having a big life. And I don't even know what that means, like big life. Mm, might be another one for the therapist. But I think it might have something to do and linking with the visibility stuff. I was just actually talking to someone over in America just earlier from a marketing media group about my book. And I think it's hard for me to imagine, my book, getting more attention. Uh, yeah, I think, imagining big, I suppose, is, yeah, like there's always this kind of containment around it. So, yeah, like it's not possible, that's unrealistic, or that only happens to a small percentage, which yeah, there's truth to it, or it won't happen to you, or we're too scared of that anyway. But I think mm, that is hard to imagine, to let myself imagine. And I think just in general, I find it hard to imagine. Um, mm. I've always been, you know, knowing what's here or what's, yeah, here in the moment that exists rather than imagining a future or imagining something that doesn't exist right now. Yeah. Anyway, that was really deep. I can, though, interesting enough, I can imagine. So maybe this is not true. Yeah, like I can imagine an elderhood. And I call the next stage after midlife elderhood. It just fits with me. I can imagine myself being an older woman. I could even imagine this right now, to do this right now, living in a cottage, something small, on a bit of piece of land, lots of wildflowers around, big trees, a lake, yeah, imagining big here. Just a cozy little spot that is maybe attached to a little town that's, maybe 20 minutes down the road where you can, grab a coffee, get your groceries, connect with, the community. I imagine my dogs there. I imagine sometimes my partner there. um, but I do imagine this kind of solitude, but with animals, with nature, and a quite slow life, which is really interesting because I, prior to burnout, was very much a traveler internationally. I was, on the track to let's buy a home. Uh, it was like fast, or some, faster than it is now. But I really imagine the slow and the community and connection and just being. Yeah, I can imagine that. Mm, mm. Which is interesting. It's very solo, very solitude, with a speckle of connection. Anyway, shared that with you guys. Um, The last question in this section, which is the second last section, I'll just let you know for those who are still with me. And feel free to pause this. If it's a lot, again, check back in later. No one says you have to do all this all at once. But what feels quietly alive underneath everything? Mm. What feels alive underneath everything? I feel like not feel like, there's this inner child. And really, like, it's funny that I call it the inner child because really, this is just a part of us. This inner child who who just has this energy to do, and I don't mean to do the to-do list, just to play, have fun. There's this energy to, yeah, just underneath everything, to have fun, to play around, to explore, to experiment, to try new things, to not try new things if I don't want to, just to, I suppose, to be free to choose. That energy is underneath, I suppose, everything. Just freedom to choose, freedom to experiment, freedom to try things out. Obviously, very aware too, I'm in, a fairly privileged position, that I have some of those choices too. Sometimes we have limits around our freedoms, if that makes sense, due to disability, due to finance, due to location, due to, lots of things, due to our health. So yeah, I'm very mindful of that, about, yeah, our level of freedom. So anyway, that's underneath everything. I feel like, yeah, there's, and she's coming out to play. I'm allowing her a lot more. It is something that I'm working very much on. Allow that energy to come out. And it's such a, I just recognize now, such a cross section with my fatigued perimenopausal body, who's feeling the weight and cumulative effect of years of maybe using and abusing my body, but then also going through perimenopause, which is such a shift and change from a brain body perspective that, of course, it's like, I mean, I've never been pregnant, but pregnant women have told me, like, that, that takes a lot of energy. So you do nap more, or you're tired, or things are a lot more slower. So same with perimenopause. So yeah, anyway, it's interesting that there's this real buzzing child freedom energy, and there's also this, and I think she's also loud and wanting to talk and share, and then there's also this tired, a need for solitude and connection to nature and animals, and less with people. It's just really interesting. Parts that seem to have or not seem to, are opposing, but also mm, make sense in a way. Anyway, pause, check, reflect in your own way, in whatever way. I know for some people, I didn't mention this way, sometimes people like to reflect through the medium of art, to, scrapbooking or drawing or painting, any kind of medium they feel pulled to. There's so many ways to reflect. It doesn't have to be writing. It can be writing, but poems, you don't have to be an artist or poet. It's just, going the way you feel pulled towards reflecting. And it can be just sitting there and thinking away as well. Now, these last two questions are on future and possibility. So we're arriving to that other end of the journey, from past to present to emerging to future and possibility. Now, there's two questions under this one. So this one is, if I imagine a version of me a few years from now, maybe for you, you might want to do 5 or 10 years from now. What does she want me to know? So it's a take from you. Some of you may have experienced the future self exercise, often used in compassion focused therapy, but in other therapies as well, or just out there as well, like imagining a self, a version of you 3, 5 years, 10 years from now. And what might she want you to know, the current version of you. So yeah, sit with that question, press pause. And I'm going to ponder for a bit. Hmm. I've done this future exercise a couple of times, and it's always very interesting. One of the things that she often says to me, and she's saying to me now, is that it'll be okay. You'll be okay. And then part of me goes, you can't, and I think this is my anxious part, goes, you can't guarantee that. You don't know if everything's being okay, is going to be okay. And then and I think this is my compassionate self, and that might be coming from a future self. It goes, yeah, things might happen, and that are bad or good. That's a given, life, right? but I'm going to be here, that there's a part of you that will be here and will look after you. And I think that's where she's coming from, that she's reassuring me that everything will be okay because there's always a part of me that's there for me. And that's kind of really beautiful. And that's that. I think I said earlier, done a lot of work around compassion for self and my own personal journey, but I do that with the people I work with too, because it's such a protective factor. It doesn't protect you from bad shit happening. That's life. But unfortunately, and the earth we live on, but it provides a safeness. It's like having an ideal mother, an ideal support mechanism. Yeah. So anyway, that's what she says. She wants me to know that it'll be okay, that she'll be there for me. And that's, yeah, quite beautiful. I think she also wants to let me know is that you'll grow into yourself more and more. Like that's the other thing, like there's no rush, there's no need to push yourself, that keep doing what you're doing, keep learning and growing, keep exploring and reflecting, keep being open-minded and curious. Just keep on that track. I think she's also very supportive. She might also want to tell me, go look out for, certain things like, some of my tendencies that I have grown up with that I'm shedding. So the perfectionist, the people pleaser, she might, just go, remember to keep a hold on, to be aware of those. But, you know, um, yeah, yeah, that's where that goes for me. And the last question, what might still be possible for me even now in my midlife, in this era that they're saying we're invisible and going downhill? Or maybe there are some real big struggles that are going on for you, and and most likely there is. But what is possible even now with where I'm at? Look at the possibilities. Our minds are so good, and they're designed to look at the deficits. They look at the declines, look at the negative, look at the, in the moment what exists, but also what might then exist in the future. They call it the negativity bias. It's, or the don't get killed machine. Our mind is always looking out for those things, but it is possible with conscious prompting and choice to move more into what's the possibilities even now with where I'm at. So I encourage you to pause and spend, however long on this question for yourself, the last one. And I'm going to think about what is even possible for me right now. I think my dream of that home is definitely possible. Uh, what that might look like might be a little bit different depending on the budget because let's face it, housing prices are stupid. Can't think of a better word. I live here in Brisbane, Australia. Yeah, it's not cheap. But who knows? There might be a little cottage that works out. Might be a little fixer-upper. But anyway, but I feel like that might be possible. But I suppose right now, if I'm like, what's possible right now? you know, uh, it's possible to connect with my loved ones, to be there for them in a way that is possible for me. It's possible for me to prioritize that, prioritize my connections. I remember my early midlife burnout really taught me how disconnected I was from what really truly mattered, and that was my connections. And part of my journey out of burnout and in my midlife is nurturing those connections, not just the one with me, but the one with others, and being really mindful about those choices, and who to nurture and be with. So there's, yeah, I suppose, that is possible for me right now, is to nurture my connections with me and others. It is possible for me to nurture my connection to nature. Nature's been a huge solace in my, again, burnout recovery, but also with my well-being going forward. And it is possible for me to get into nature. I have my abilities to, to get into nature, even if it is my front yard or backyard or around the block. But I can also drive and access other nature spaces. So that is possible for me right now. It is possible for me right now to work in a way that is conducive to my well-being and my health in this perimenopausal space. It is possible for me to, to do what works for me. And it is possible for me to do certain things to look after me in this perimenopausal space. I can't afford everything, in terms of what they recommend to look after your health. But there are things I can do, and I do my best to do those things. I'm not at all, perfect. Here's my perfectionist, like not doing it all and not doing it all the time, but who is? We're messy. But yeah, those things are possible. And I have faith there's a possibility of a future that continues to be one that is conducive to and sustainable for my health and well-being. Uh, yeah. Maybe that's a bit of blind faith. I don't know. But look, again, I think I mentioned it before. I'm a bit of a here and now present person. Sometimes imagining the future can be challenging, or imagining I sort of take things mostly moment by moment. So those possibilities also is a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, anyway, that's what comes up for me. And I think I said earlier, whatever comes up for you in answering these questions is meant to come up and is okay. Doesn't have to be fully formed at all. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on this reflective journey with me into midlife and around what midlife means to you, what you hope, or the possibilities, and dreaming of what midlife and beyond might look for you. I hope my shares added maybe entertainment or value there. It's certainly a list of questions I think I might go back to at a later stage as well and give a little bit more thought. I should say I did no preparation. I love just doing it off the cuff. I love reflective practice, and just whatever shows up, shows up. It's a practice of mine. So I did that genuinely with you guys. So anyway, yeah, please feel free to follow, subscribe, comment if you can, wherever you're tuning in. My outro will let you know a little bit more about how to stay in contact with me or connect with me with the different resources and services I provide. But I just want to thank you for coming on this journey for me, and to wish you well and to take care of you. And bye for now. Thanks for listening to Midlife Reclaimed. I hope today's conversation has reminded you that you are not alone, and that change is possible even in the busiest seasons of life. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, rate, or review the podcast and share it with another midlife woman who might need it. For more resources on navigating midlife stress, overwhelm, and burnout, along with reflective writing prompts and community connection, visit shannonaswales.com. You can also watch full episodes on YouTube at Midlife Reclaimed. Remember, you have permission to slow down, to rest, and to reclaim what matters most. See you again soon.